Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Ysleta Independent Schools District's meeting of the Board of Trustees. We invite you to share your comments with the board during the public comment portion of our meeting. Public comment sign-up cards show the rules for participating. Legally, the board may listen but may not enter into discussion on the issue raised. This meeting of the Board of Trustees is called to order at 6:01 p.m. We have a quorum with Charlie Bustillos, Sotero Ramirez, Richard Cuder, Mike Rosales, Connie Woodruff, Catherine Lucero, and myself, Cruz Ochoa. Trustee Lucero, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor
the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Yes, I just need them.
Any speakers?
Oh.
No. Do we have any speakers?
No, I don't think so. No speakers?
I was going to say, anyone wishing to speak?
There is no public comment this evening. Okay, let's proceed. Dr. De La Torre, do you have any presentations for us this evening?
President Ochoa, members of the board, we have several presentations. The first presentation this evening is the Employee Health Benefits Solicitation presentation by Gallagher. However, I've asked Ms. Lindley Leeper to go ahead and take the lead on that presentation.
Good evening, President Ochoa, members of the board, and Dr. De La Torre. As you can see, I am not Mr. Long, who is our primary consultant from Gallagher, but it's his spring break and he's with his family, I think in Idaho or Utah, someplace like that, skiing. So I'm going to try to do his presentation justice this evening. We are going to talk about the medical and pharmaceutical RFP, or request for proposals. We'll discuss some of the financial assumptions that were included in both the RFP as well as our projections for what the benefits will cost us in the future and how it may affect our health insurance fund. We're also going to talk about what our current plan looks like and what it might look like in the future. We'll discuss, or at least advise you of who responded to the RFP, and then our recommendation for an accountable care organization. We'll talk a little bit about the ancillary benefits or voluntary benefits and some of the new offerings that are included, and then what the next steps are. So as we prepared to go out to bid, we want to make sure that when respondents provide us with a proposal, they have apples to apples data to compare. And so we told them, obviously, our plan needs to go into effect January 1st of 2021. That's a long time away. It's even further away from when we actually solicited for this proposal, which started in October of 2019. We also assumed that no one would move between the plans. So we have 4 plans now with a special package, and we assumed no one will migrate from Plan 1 to Plan 2 or Plan 3. And then we assumed, or asked them to assume, that the plans will remain the same, that there won't be any change in the particular plan designs. This is very difficult to see. Most of these are so data heavy that it will be a challenge for you to see them, but it's not critically important that you be able to read this slide. I did want to include it because folks that may be looking at it later can see what their current plan looks like and what the benefits are under options 1, plan 1, 2, 3, 4, and the special package. These are the current contributions paid for each plan. So if you are on a monthly paycheck and you're in plan 1 for just the employee and spouse, you pay $784 a month for that insurance. If you're on the 26 biweekly pay plan or the 19 biweekly pay plan, then you can see what your particular premiums are for the plan you and your family or you alone are enrolled in. With a look at our financials, you may remember that we've told you since the plan has not been updated since 2014. No premium increases, no changes to the plan, nothing. We are eroding our fund balance in the health plan. And so by the end of 2019, we were down about $3.6 million, and we are continuing to erode that balance. We estimated that effective January 1, 2021, we would need to be planning to cover a $10 million deficit. And so these are some of the things we were particularly looking for as we began to evaluate the proposals that came in. Our plan today is very rich. By comparison to other health benefit plans that you may be exposed to if you purchase your own, if you maybe are on a spouse's plan, or you've seen what the city or county or other school districts may offer, ours is rich in benefits. And we don't charge a high employee contribution. It's been stable, it's been flat completely since 2014, though the district has increased its share of the contribution. And so, as I mentioned, we've depleted the fund balance, and we estimated we would need to be ready to cover a $10 million deficit by the end of 2021. Some of the options you can look at for addressing a deficit like that are just to change the plan structure or change who administers the plan, the network. We can increase the district's contribution, which we have actually done almost every year. The district has contributed more to the plan. However, we've never increased the employee contribution, so that's something else you could do to try to recover the $10 million that we're looking for. Or you can perhaps negotiate lower payments when you pay for your care. So maybe you can negotiate with the hospitals or the doctors to pay less for the care that you're receiving. And then you can try to stabilize the growth of the inflation and the cost for medical care. And so this is a timeline at the top, just elaborating again that we went out for bid or out for proposals starting Friday, October the 11th of 2019. All of those responses were due by November 21st, 2019. And you can see that Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, FFG, and United Healthcare all submitted proposals. I'm very pleased with that. It means we got a breadth of responses, and the major healthcare providers did respond, or insurance providers did respond. So then we began to take their responses and say, all right, based on what we've received, what would our health plan look like as we go forward? So once again, as I mentioned, this doesn't take effect until January 1st of 2021. We looked at a rolling 12-month period of claims because we wanted them to analyze our claims and use those as they projected and as we projected what it might do to our fund balance in the healthcare fund. We assumed that this would include administrative services only, with fees up 3% from what we're paying in 2020. So that's the fee we pay to somebody to administer our claims and to run the network. And then we estimated a 20% increase in our stop-loss premiums over this year. Those have gone up about that much each year. And if you recall, the stop-loss is when we have a claim and it exceeds $300,000, the stop-loss kicks in and protects us for the amounts over that. Then again, we assume no change in the plan design or the number of people enrolled in each plan. We also estimated we would continue to receive from our pharmaceutical rebates about $2.8 million. And then an accountable organization savings, if we utilize this type of plan, are estimated to generate about $4.7 million. So the next slide you're going to see, there's some rounding taken into account, but otherwise we've included all of these assumptions in it. And so, once again, this slide is dense, but let me explain from a comparative point to the slide you saw earlier of the 2020 plans. So this is now assuming all of these fall under an accountable care organization. And essentially what that means is right now, more than 50% of our employees choose to go to the Providence or Tenet healthcare organization for medical services, whether it's urgent care, primary care, emergency room, or hospitalization. They end up in a Providence network or Tenet healthcare. By doing that, by assuming this and by accepting an ACO proposal, we were able to negotiate directly with Providence for a lower cost of care. So if our employees who choose to go through the ACO to the Providence network, they will retain a lower cost for medical services, but they retain the same benefit structure. So it's 80-20, it's lower cost to the district overall, and that cost to the district, the savings to the district, is passed on to the employee, and you'll see that further played out in just a moment when we talk about the premiums for those plans. If an employee chooses, and they may, to go outside of the Providence, the Tenet healthcare network, then they're going to experience slightly less coverage or slightly less in payments. So they would have a 60-40 split, say in Plan 1, instead of an 80-20 split once they meet their deductible. Does that make sense? Okay. So we would keep all of the plans as they are, except they would be under an accountable care organization. So we'd still have the plan exactly like it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the special package. The special package, you might recall, is when you do have a spouse that's covered elsewhere, or you have private health insurance and you ought not to be insured by the district. So this is what the suggested rates will be. And the reason this slide is important particularly is in the center is what the premiums are right now under 2020 and what they would be in the future if the district assumed all of the burden. However, the top scenario is what I'm recommending and what you'll see brought forth in the budget recommendation next month. It is a 3% increase to employee health care premiums. 3%. That is tremendous. We have not had an increase in premiums since 2014, and with this plan and the recommendation by the evaluation committee and the insurance oversight committee, premiums to the employee would go up 3%. So for instance, if you are in the plan 2 for employee and children, then you are paying $507 a month today. Under the ACO and the new plan, you'd pay $522 a month. That's remarkable. So the employee and premiums will go up 3% and the district's contribution will go up 3%. Now what I kept getting was, oh, so it's really going up 6%. No. If you'll notice in the top box, Ysleta currently contributes in the neighborhood of $36 million. That's the employer. We put that much into the fund each year. That's going up 3%. The employees pay in about $11 million, and if that goes up 3%, it's $340,000. So it's not 6% total, it's 3%. We're dividing it and cost sharing it with the employees. Any questions on that one? Okay. This is a local map of all the Tenet facilities and the different kinds. So acute care, surgical centers, imaging centers, surgical centers, freestanding ERs, as well as the various hospitals in the Tenet Providence network. One of the reasons this is important is because you may recall that right now we have a clinic here on site. And employees are able to come here for medical treatment as long as they come during the regular operating hours of the district. However, it's difficult for someone in the Parkland learning community to come down to this one, and it costs us about $1 million a year. So what we are opting for is to close the clinic here, but make all of these available to the employees regardless of where you live. And we're still in the process of negotiating, but I believe we'll get there, to where that you almost have like gold card access. So you can call, and as a member of the ACO with Providence, you should be able to get priority access to an appointment or when you walk into a clinic. Additionally, you probably know we have dental, vision, critical, I don't have, let me see, permanent life, identity theft, and some of those types of plans. Those are all voluntary, meaning that the district pays none of those contributions. Those are strictly paid for by the employees at their option. These are all of the respondents for the various plans. I'm not going to list them all, but you can see Aetna, Aflac, Allstate, all the way down to United Healthcare, United Concordia. Once those were evaluated, These are the lines of coverage going forward. So we're continuing to offer disability, basic life, and supplemental life, the dental PPO, dental HMO, vision. We have 2 new lines of coverage which were important to our employees. These include critical illness and accident. In the second column, under 2020 carrier, that just tells you who offers that product today. 2021 tells you who we're recommending it be awarded to in the future. With the exception of the vision plan that Aetna will now be taking over, all of these plans offer lower rates to the employee, obviously not including the 2 new products being provided. And I will tell you that in the past, there have not been, strong negotiations because this wasn't a product the district paid for. Employees solely paid for this out of their pockets. So we went back and said, no commissions. We're not going to let you overburden these products with high commissions to the employees. And so that's why you're seeing lower rates or no change in rates even after 6 years for these various products. And with regard to vision, because it's now taken or will be assumed by Aetna, that allows a better maintenance of the product and the benefits are slightly richer. So with regard to next steps, we will bring back for your consideration in April the recommendation to increase premiums to the employee by 3% and the district's contribution by 3%. We'll move forward with Gallagher to develop an implementation plan because, as you know, we have to start working with Providence. We have to execute those contracts. That takes some time. And then in October, we start early, open enrollment. What I would like to do, because this is a new form of plan and it has differences in terms of you need to go to Providence if you want the better rate, but you can go elsewhere, just understand that it will cost you slightly more out of pocket. We want to have meetings at each learning community at each high school so that we can explain to employees and talk them through what Plan 4 means with an HSA, because I meet lots of them that will ask me personally, tell me how that works and what does it exactly mean? So our goal is to have meetings at each learning community at the high school and explain the various plans, explain the differences, and what an accountable care organization or ACO organization is. And then obviously the plan will start January 1st of 2021. These are the standard disclaimers provided by our consultant, and with that, I can take any questions you might have.
Do we know what what the difference is on if they don't use Providence? Do we know what the difference?
Yes, so it depends on the plan that you're in, but essentially you would go to an 80, so instead of 80-20 in Plan 1, you'd be 60-40, and that's the same across all of those plans. So instead of the 80-20 co-insurance, you would be at a 60-40. It still gets the preferred Aetna rate, but the cost share is different when you go outside that network.
And the copay stays the same? Do we have a?
I think they are, there's 20 and 20, and I'm sorry, I printed this too small for myself. 25 under Plan 2, 30 under Plan 3, and 40 under Plan 4 until you meet the deductible, then it's 100%. And all of those things will be in much bigger slides and easier to read when we actually talk with employees.
May I ask,
So, yes.
what about the pharmacy part of it?
So the pharmacy will remain with CVS, where it is now, and it's essentially the same benefits. And Gary, he's nodding at me, yes, essentially the same thing. You have the 90-day mail order, and I'm sorry I forgot to recognize him. He is the area vice president for Gallagher. So if you have any really detailed questions, he's going to come up here and help me. Anything else?
Ms. Leeper,
Yes.
I remember that I asked a question earlier about whether you had to elect in advance, like when you enroll, whether you were going to go with the ACO or the broader network. Can you explain about when you make the choice?
So you don't make the choice until you're going to the doctor and say you have a particular primary care physician and you don't care what network they're in. That's the one you want to go to.
What about in the event of, say, during the summer and they travel out? How will that be covered?
So if it's an emergency room visit, my understanding is by federal law, that's covered at emergency room rate. So it has, yes, yes. If one of the, yes?
I am so sorry, we didn't get that on recording.
So
If you
Ms.
can-
Lucero asked about an emergency room visit when you are outside of the area. And my response was, emergency room rates are covered at in-network benefits, or it's in-network claims. And so back to Ms. Austin's question, you don't necessarily, you may choose to go to that primary care physician that you prefer. And so Aetna has a website that tells you, yes, they're in the ACO, or they're in the tenant network, or no, they're not. And so you make that decision then, I want to go to that primary care physician. I don't care if they're in the tenant network, and you're going to pay the 60/40 versus the 80/20. So as you can imagine, if we are able to direct more than 50% of our traffic, which already goes to the tenant network, that's how we're able to negotiate lower cost for the care and pass that savings on to the employees. It's the volume.
I have a couple questions for you.
Yes, sir.
The first one is, those employees that elect to go out of network, like to a Mayo Clinic or an MD Anderson, can you walk me through a scenario how that would work?
So if you elect to do that, you're going to be paying the 60/40. So you have all of the same deductibles, So plan one, if you go to the tenant network, your cost share is going to be 80/20. If you go to Mayo outside, then it'll be 60/40. Your deductible in plan one within the network is $300 and I think $8. So $300 annual, family is $8 or $6, maybe $6. And then if you go to Mayo, it goes up to $600 and per individual, and then $1,800 per family. So it's slightly less generous if you opt to go outside of the ACO.
Even though we talk about the tenant network, and it's extensive, they're all over the city, except below I-10. If you elect to go to tenant, we have all these groups of doctors that have privileges at all these particular facilities, whether it's tenant or HCA or UMC or Tech Docs. So how does that work as far as the 80/20 or 60/40? Can you walk me through
It's
that?
exactly the same way. So
Okay.
outside of a tenant facility in the city of El Paso will still fall under the tier 2 or the 60/40 cost share.
Okay.
And the higher deductible and the higher, the 60/40.
I'm very proud that during the time that I've been on the board that we've been able to manage this, and I realized that at some point 5 years ago that we were going to have this discussion. But we have that group of employees that 3% is significant, and we have that group of employees that they're hanging on by their skin of the teeth to have health insurance and make those decisions between paying for health insurance or not, or who they include on it. Do we have a feel, and it's probably not a fair question, but do we have a feel for what percentage of employees may drop off our plan with the increase?
So actually, you'll be hearing from the Insurance Oversight Committee. 4 of their members, I believe, are here in the audience this evening. That committee consisted of about 100 people. Principals, other administrators, central office employees, transportation workers, teachers, instructional aides. We went as wide as we could go. We met at least, I think, 3 times, maybe 3 times, is that right? They're nodding at me. To talk with them first before we ever went out to bid, to tell them basically this is where we are. This is what our concerns are. This is what keeps me up at night, knowing that we haven't had a change in our plans or an increase in premium since 2014, yet medical costs have continued to rise. We had that meeting. Then we came back when we received all of the proposals and said, here's what we've gotten. We believe the ACO is the way to go, but before we make that recommendation to you, we're gonna come back with it costed out, because obviously you care most about what it does to your wallet. What does it do to your family's budget each month? And so we came back then and we walked it through. Tell me what plan you're in today, and let me show you what it will cost with a 3% increase. And I will say, by and large, they all thought it was remarkable. They expressed, and I'll let them say for themselves, but my takeaway from it is they were very pleased. Ms. Valencia had several people on the committee. I think they're also included with the spokespeople that are here this evening. No negative feedback. I had one parent who was concerned. She had a college-age student, I think in Idaho, or maybe Illinois, I'm not sure which. And I'll tell you, one of the things we're still working with tenant on, and I don't have it resolved yet because we're going into the finer pieces of the negotiation now, is can we have access to tenant nationwide? And right now, it's not a nationwide deal, it's here. But I'm not done.
Sorry. I trust that you all will have done your due diligence, and I was just a concern, because that's been one of those discussions, you have with our employees, in different little groups, and they express concern about that routinely. And as somebody who works for another educational entity here in town, I can tell you what they've done to us, and
It's a lot more than this.
yeah, it's a lot more than this. The last question has to do with families. As you know, families today, they come in all different shapes and sizes and colors, and you name it. They're just unique, and we have whatever considered traditional, and then we have families that again come in different shapes and sizes. Does this plan take into account those types of family structures? Those type of family structures, I guess, that have different types of families, that more so different than what we call traditional.
I'm looking at the back. Can you see me? So I can tell you that whatever it is today, however we define a family today, that's continued under the future options. But in terms of whether it's a non-traditional family, not, say, divorced spouses where it's one spouse or one family member and one child. Those are obviously covered. You're talking about non-traditional, same-sex marriage, is that what you're asking me for?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know, either of you?
And by the way, it could be the divorced couple that, they move back together because that's the only way they can afford to survive,
Understood.
And then couples who elect to, not only same-sex, but couples who elect just to be
Common
together.
law or
Yeah, well, they don't want to call themselves common law because they want to be able to walk away,
So I'm seeing yeses and nos, so how about this? I will get you an answer and I'll have it for you Wednesday night.
Okay. And then I lied. I have one more.
Okay?
The last thing, the last thing is I appreciate the extra plans. I appreciate the extra plans, and if you could put that slide back up, the new plans.
There we go.
There we go. Particularly critical illness and accident for families who've had to deal with that. It can be significant, and not only can it change your life, but also it can impact your family financially for years to come. So I think that's great. On some of these ancillary products that you mentioned here, one of the things we had kind of talked about in passing, just because I've had employees discuss it with me, was the possibility of providing pet insurance. Did we have an opportunity to explore that?
I don't think, we did not in this RFP, could we? But we can explore it.
I'm sorry, talking about pet insurance? Okay, what did you think I said? No, that's what I thought. Oh, okay. And the only reason is that we have, again, talking about families, we have families that are made up of an adult and their babies and their pets, and so I'm just asking because you can spend an awful lot of money on your pets as well. So.
We will have to look into it. I don't believe it was included in this RFP, so I'd have to do it separately, but I think it can be done.
Okay. Because we have an employee out there right now that she's paying for dialysis for her puppy, and it's incredibly expensive, so I'm just asking.
Thank you. Mr. Rosales.
This whole issue has been like a cloud on as we thought about these things. Can you throw or shed any light on the deficit, the $10 million deficit, as opposed to moving into in this direction?
So between the savings of about 4.7 million, 4.8 by going to the ACO, combined with our increase in premium, that's about a dent of $6.5 million a year right there. So I think we will recover it, and that will be fine with this increase. So, you want more?
No, I'd just rather be realistic and kind of prepare for
So
the possibility. You know, we could have one or two major incidents.
And
things
actually,
change.
our claims experience that was rolled into these assumptions had some major claims in it. So there were some doozies.
So we need to remove the cloud now.
I think you can remove the cloud now.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard you say something about the HCA plan. I did hear you say.
The high deductible health plan?
No, back up. Will we be offering, or do we already offer, where the employees can pay for our monthly submit funds so that they can use that towards their health co-pays and pharmaceutical and stuff like that?
So I think you are talking about a health savings account or a flexible spending account. So yes, those are included within the same exact offerings we have today with regard to health and pharmacy is in this plan.
And Lily, you said, so this year it'll be 3%. And I'm not trying to go too far into the future, but what will we then be, do you have an estimate as far as for next year?
If we did what's common in the market, it would be 3% every year. And that would be actually very reasonable. I think Mr. Ramirez can probably attest to what other insurers do or other entities do. That would be very reasonable. That's not my intent. If I could hold it, I'd hold it, but I don't know that we can. We'll have to see what the claims experience is.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
So on our agenda tonight, action item number 3, that's not the same thing as what we're talking about.
On the agenda for Wednesday, action item number 3 is to approve the award to Aetna and the pharmaceutical and the ancillary products. Those are all on the Wednesday agenda.
But that doesn't include, what is it that we're going to consider in April then?
So if you remember, this is the RFP we have to award to a vendor. But in April, we actually talk about, and I'm trying to be transparent with you, I could say in April, well, the district will assume the entire increase. Or we're going to put it all on employees. And my recommendation with the April budget presentation will be that we cost share it. Employees' premiums go up 3%, and the district assumes an increase of 3%.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just had one quick question. and
Yes, sir.
It might just be ignorance about insurance, but if a doctor is not in the network, but you go to them because they're 100% covered for a preventive, like a checkup or something like that, that's normally covered 100%, would it still be okay to go 100%, or would you have to pay something separate because they're not part of the network?
So you're saying those services that are normally covered
Like with a
100%
pediatrician,
per
you
year?
take your son or daughter to go get the shots, but that doctor is now not part of the network. Would you be paying a cost for that person?
I think you pay the higher cost, is that right? Yes, you would. But if you go within the ACO Tier 1, it would be the same as before.
Even though it used to be covered 100%?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Leeper.
At this time, we'd like to invite those members of the Employee Health Benefits Insurance Oversight Committee to come forward and address the board.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Marcela Aguayo, and I'm a third grade teacher here in the district, and I am speaking on behalf of teachers in the Ysleta Teachers Association as the vice president. And just kind of introduce yourself.
My name is Miriam Hawkins. I'm a coordinator at Transportation.
Good evening, everyone. Jake Valtierra, Principal, Riverside Middle School.
My name is Leonor Terrazas. I work at Escarret Elementary.
I'm an ESP, an education support professional, also from Ysleta Teacher Association.
So we were part of the Insurance Oversight Committee, which was very informative, by the way. I think that putting all this information out there really helped me understand why we have to incur a little bit of an increase, because as good as it was for, 6 years? We know that realistically, we're gonna have to see costs go up just a little bit, and 3% is not too bad. So we did meet for the first time. The next slide, sorry. We did meet the first time, January the 7th, to give us information on what it was that we were gonna see the increases. There wasn't any changes with the benefits, so that's a good one. The second meeting we had was on February the 21st with the final evaluation for the RFP. That was gonna be presented for adoption, or, yes. Sorry, I'm really nervous.
So folks, I had the privilege to serve both on the Insurance Oversight Committee and also on the Evaluation Committee. So I just wanted to shed some light to the board and executive cabinet on what the process actually looked like on the user end. So when we gathered together at the room outside of the Ysleta room on January 7th, we utilized the rubric presented by risk management to evaluate all proposals that came in through the RFP. Then when we came together at the end of that meeting, the major purpose was to select a group of proposals that we would invite for best and final offers. Throughout the whole process, Gallagher was instrumental in shedding light to point by point, what are the needs of our employees, what are the needs of the district. Also in terms of fiscal responsibility and understanding the needs of like our fund balance and maintaining our fund balance so that we can continue to provide all the benefits to our employees district-wide. We took that in the overall calculus of our decision. On January 8th, we did have the privilege of having a few proposals presented to us for best and final offers. Again, our consultant from Gallagher was there to walk us through after each presentation to highlight some great offerings that the company has. For example, when we looked at Aetna, when we looked at the ACO from Aetna, when we looked at Blue Cross. And we did not take the decision lightly. It was a point-by-point rubric. We did take our time in evaluating all the proposals. And moving forward from the evaluation committee before bringing it back to the insurance oversight committee, we did do our due diligence. We wanted to ensure that are the needs of our employees going to be met if we did go with an ACO? What is the extent of the tenant network here in El Paso? When we're looking at cost-saving measures, for example, like the on-site clinic housed here at central office that a lot of employees use, myself included, if we were able to broker a deal with certain urgent cares across the city within tenant, could that service that need, even at a better satisfaction level to our employees? Moreover, when we concluded on January 8th and we decided that we were going to present what the evaluation committee had decided to the insurance oversight committee on the 21st of February, the issue was how to present the ACO, because there's no doubt there is concern. From an employee point of view, like I myself, I have 3 kids at home. I am the only income in the household. So this becomes very real very quickly. So when we look at what does the ACO have to offer, how extensive is the network, what at the end user perspective, is the same quality of care going to be provided? And I mean, it was pretty clear that this is the best proposal for our district in taking all those factors into account. Thank you.
Okay, so on February 21st, we had the final presentation by Gallagher. So I just really wanted to thank them, and specifically Nick Long, for the thorough explanation of each possible outcome based on the increased premium contributions for the district and the employees. And I really do think that they created a very innovative solution that would suit our needs, not only for the short term, but in long term as well. And also thanking Mrs. Lindley Leeper for vetting all the offers and also jumping in to help explain the finer points of the health insurance terms in more simpler language. That way our committee could understand the presentation. So I do feel that the district and Gallagher were committed to finding the best solution for everyone, also thinking in mind of that funding account that we have, that we were just saying that it's been depleted over the years. So we had that in mind as we were thinking about the next new health insurance. The process wasn't rushed at all. It's very transparent. All the options were considered. And we did go into account what would it look like if the district was the one who funded that increase in premiums, or what would it look like if it was all just on the employee side. And we do feel that that split, the 3% on each, is the best option at this point. The committee was made up of a diverse membership, so it was, like Mrs. Leeper said, you know, we had educational support staff, we had teachers, we had paras. It was a very diverse group, and we did have the time to ask questions. We were educated in all the options, and we did recommend, though, that across the board, usually when we get presented the health insurance presentation at the schools, that we meet one time. It's probably about an hour, and then we have the option, we have the date of, oh, you know, they're going to come in and help you sign up for your benefits for the next year. It's not enough time, and there are some, a lot of people interested in that Plan 4 option with the health savings account. And if we were to be able to further educate our employees, maybe those employees who fit that plan might actually go into that, and that would save the district more money, and we could build up that fund account again. We also did like that if employees did still want to visit their preferred doctors that are in Tier 2, they would still be able to, even though it is at a higher expense. You still have that option. We did have that question about Tenet if it was nationwide, and I know they're working on that. We did like that the health insurance stays with Aetna. The plans remain the same, benefits the same, with the ancillary products that are also offered. We also wanted to talk about maybe educating employees on telemedicine. Currently, I don't think too many employees use the teledoc service, which is basically you visit the clinic, but it's through the phone or online through an app where you don't physically have to go to the clinics. And I don't think that that's being accessed as much as it could be. So I think that would be a really good presentation or further education for our employees. And we did like the fact, I come to the clinic here all the time. I usually don't go to the doctor, and I love the clinic here. It was an awesome experience. They take care of you very well, but it was really hard to get an appointment. So if I was sick and I knew it was a sinus infection, I just really needed that prescription sent to the clinic, to Walgreens. It would take a while. So if I was sick on Monday, it's like, oh, we don't have an appointment until like maybe next Thursday, next time. So I would suffer through it, and I would try to medicate with drugstore products. But it would be a really good idea to not just have the clinic here, but across the city, where we have a lot of teachers that live on the west side, or just in farther parts where they just couldn't come to the central office for the clinic. It would help us, especially saving that $1 million per year. Pretty much. We did want to just say thank you to Dr. De La Torre for working with the Ysleta Teachers Association throughout the years on salary and health insurance. And since his arrival to the district, our employees have enjoyed substantial salary increases. So as far as Mr. Ramirez's concerns about how would employees feel about that 3% increase, it is a lot. And Lee, Mr. Rasas is going to talk about those concerns. Pretty much, because we saw the different increases, like the premiums just on the district or just on the employee side, we did feel that splitting that 3% each would be the best option. And employees really haven't seen an increase in their health insurance costs for the past about 7 years. So because of those salary increases that we've had, and we've had substantial ones throughout the years, I think employees are at a better financial situation to afford that increase. And just, again, thank you to the Board of Trustees for always following the recommendations that the district provides. And that's pretty much it. But Lee is going to talk about the auxiliary positions, how they felt about it.
Thank you. they pretty well made all the points that we had spoken about. But as far as being a ESP, an education support professional, yes, the fees are high for us. Say an employee that earns $60,000 as opposed to say one that earns $10,000, but yet we still have to pay the same amount of premium for whether you're single or a married or one with family. So those are always things that we have to think about, and you in your positions that you do and that you're considerate of us, that our salaries are growing thanks to the raises that you all have afforded us and that the state has. So hopefully that will continue. These are the plan that was presented to us in the IOC committee. That was reasonable. Could always be better, but that was very reasonable, considering I have the plan too, and it was going to go up a few dollars. And so I appreciate that the Insurance Oversight Committee did get all this information. Ms. Leeper, thank you for clarifying things for us when things were a little intricate or delicate. You came in and kind of smoothed the information, so that was very good. Thank you. We also, as far as the TELDOC, I think that would help in our case because we wouldn't have to wait for the doctor, and we also wouldn't have to pay for the doctor with that TELDOC. So that might help us in saving for ESPs in the long run. Also the availability of the doctors around town where it's more accessible to us. And yeah, I really like the clinic here in Ysleta, but I could be sick on Monday, and you're right, I couldn't get in until Thursday. So that was hard. But now with these opportunities of doctors all over town, that might help us employees. I think pretty much they talked all the points that I had too. So at this time, thank you. So at this time, as the IOC committee, we recommend the district select Aetna self-funded medical ACO offer and their Aetna CVS pharmacy offer. The overall network offerings, savings, cost containment measures, the rebates, and real-time claim integration represents the best value for the district. And with all the other ancillary volunteer products that are offered, we feel that it is a good plan for employees. Thank you.
So then something also popped into my brain. The reason why I personally thought it was like a very innovative plan, I know there was concerns about what if you have providers that you would like to go to, but they're in that tier 2, they no longer qualify, they're not in network. The hope was that because we're sending such a high volume of employees to that tier 1 networks, to those providers, that maybe you do get them to switch. Those who are now tier 2, maybe they see, okay, well, there's such a high volume, maybe I would like to be a part of this. So that was the hope. And about the whole plan for seeing who would qualify, maybe if we get more employees going that way, we can help build that health savings account again with the district. I was on plan 2 for the longest time because I feel like you get the best money worth what you're paying into. So I had over the years heard about the plan 4 account, the plan, and the health savings account. So this year I did try it just to see how it would be. And those employees that are concerned about maybe not having that money to cover the high deductible, what I did personally is that I still paid into, like if I was paying plan 2. That way I didn't feel it financially. It was still the same thing, but I have that money in that health savings account. That way, in case I do need to use that, I have it there. But it feels like I'm still on plan 2, pretty much. So that's kind of a route that some of us are trying just to see how it feels like. And I think if that's a viable option for their employees, maybe with that new training, the more education, they can try that. And that would help that health savings account here with the district. That way we have that money, like Mr. Rosales was asking. It's been decreasing every single year. Maybe in the future, the district can still help employees keep the cost down by contributing more if we rebuild that account.
That was one thing that I just wanted to say. Yes, the education for the understanding, for us to understand the programs, the plans, so that we can see if it's worth it for us, especially at our lower income salaries. So that is something that I remembered just right now, that, yeah, that's really important for us to have that. Groups, like Ms. Lindley said, they'll be in the high schools, but even smaller groups or other times to meet and get that information out for a clearer understanding. Thank you. Anything else, guys? Okay. Thank you very much, and good night.
I'd like to thank the
yes, sir.
committee for their time and effort. I know it's a lot of hours, and it's a lot of thinking, and it's a lot of teeth grinding, because you realize the impact. And Ms. Leonor, I you know, when your comments, you know, went straight to my heart, because that's who I was thinking about. I was thinking about, you know, the folks that keep our schools clean and feed our kids and drive our kids and those sort of things. And so, and we've had those discussions over the last 5 years. And so that's tough. I will ask Dr. La Torre if we can have an aggressive, by the way, our employees are the best and the brightest. They would not be in the district, okay? But when it comes to things like insurance, it's enough to make you crazy. You know, does telemedicine really make that much of a difference? Will it save that and our employees that much money? Will it help offset some of those 3% increases? I think between now, you know, once the board approves Wednesday and April, you know, that we have an aggressive education campaign to help our employees understand the opportunities. And I mean, truly understand the opportunities to take advantage of their benefits and how to go about and pursue those things, number one. And I think that's very important. And then the second thing, and I wish I hadn't gotten so excited here, I would remember it. I'll think about it in a little bit. But anyways, I think that's one of the big things I'd like to see is an aggressive education program to help our employees understand
I
their
think
benefits.
that's important.
So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I commend you for the transparency, and the quality of care is very, to me, it's very important. With the point I'm driving towards is the fact that since there's a substantial difference in income between ancillary and the professional, the teacher, did we take into account some kind of a formula where we could fund this thing? You know, instead of 3, it could be 2.5 or something to that effect. Did we toy with that idea, or am I opening up a can of worms? I am opening up a can of worms. No, I mean, I'm serious, because there's a big differential.
I understand, because I live it. You know, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm an employee that I will complete 35 years of service to Ysleta. So I've lived all my years through Ysleta, through the years of paying no premium at all to have insurance, through the years of having to pay, through the years of keeping it keeping it the same with Dr. De La Torre and the school boards. And here we are again. Now we're at a point where, you know, it's the 3%. And when they presented that the other day, I felt like I just kind of took a deep breath, because I thought, well, 3% is sure better than, you know, 50%, or, you know.
What was the increase? Do you know your increase?
Oh, what was?
From the old to the new?
Oh, gosh. Ms. Leeper, I was in Plan 2, single. You want to check that out? What was the increase, like $20 or $15? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, since I'm trying Plan 4, my 3% increase would be about $1.50 a month. So that, again, that's one of the lower ones. But I know some of us that were in the health committee, we were talking about it, and one person said, oh, well, it's me with my children. I'm seeing like a $7 a month increase per month, or $7 to $15. There's about that range. I don't know.
So I have a bigger version in front of me now that I can actually read. Did you tell me you were Plan 2 employee?
Okay, I'm Plan 2 and single.
So
employee
right now
only.
you pay $122 monthly?
Yes, ma'am.
And you would pay $125.66, so $3.66 more
So I
per
thought,
month.
okay, I can handle that. And thanks to my race, I can do that. Thank you, Dr. Del Torre. School board.
your suggestion about teledoc is great, and that's actually included in this plan.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm gonna close with one thing, that you're getting a ride, believe me. Because with my health insurance, it was substantial. And for our organization to have gone 6 years without, an increase, $2, $3 is, and I realize dollars are hard to come by, but the fact is, you gotta look at reality for what it is,
Yeah, I think this team has done a great job, and looking out there in the world and getting us what's needed, and this board and Dr. De La Torre, you've always done what's best for employees. So I thank you.
and we wanna continue doing that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we really
I
do.
appreciate that.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just to go back to your original question, sir, the only thing I wanted to add is that the proposals that we looked at in order to address the issue that our fund balance has depleted, we only looked at either cost sharing between the employees at 3% apiece, giving all the costs to the employee or all the costs to the district. But at both on the evaluation committee or the oversight committee, we did not look at measures where a different percentage would be passed on to ancillary employees as opposed to certified employees or professional employees.
I want to thank you. I think it was a very important job you did. I think that the board feels more comfortable with your support and having done all your work and research and talked to the insurances and what you presented today. It was a very thorough job. Raising costs for insurance is a very sensitive thing. I mean, I don't think any of us here escape that. We're always looking at trying to save our money, and everything keeps going up. But I think that this district has proven over the past years that we are one family. We are trying to look out for each other, and we try to provide as much support as we can to everyone. I think now, because of our times, the health is a more important issue to all of us, and we want to protect that as much as we can, and hopefully to the fullest possible extent that the district can hold out there and help everybody with their cost of health. But again, I want to say that you guys did a very thorough job, and I commend that kind of work. I think if we did this all the time, which we do, that is why we always come out ahead. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. De La Torre. All right, good night. Thank you.
Appreciate all your work. The next item on the agenda is discussion around a unlimited tax refunding bond opportunity. And here to present is Mr. Jeff Roberts. Between here. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Del Torre. Board President Ochoa, members of the board, Jeff Robert with Hilltop Securities, also with me, my colleague from our El Paso office, Maria Urbina, and the district's bond counsel, Paul Braden, if there's any legal questions. Last week, there had been a gradual decline in interest rates, and the first district I'd really thought of was Ysleta, and the reason for that is that I know we're hoping to have the capacity to issue the remaining $150 million in authorization with the assumptions that we had been using. We were assuming we might only be able to do about 120 of that, so I know we're looking for ways to create capacity. And so as rates came down, I was looking at refunding scenarios, and as I'll show you in a second, nowadays we can only do taxable advance refundings. And what an advance refunding is a refinancing that happens more than 90 days from the call date. And taxable rates, if you look at this chart here, the very top, what it's meant to show with the little blue dots is that from the 7-year through 30-year, we're at the lowest point we've been over the last 10 years. So we've looked at these types of scenarios, but the bottom shows what treasuries have done just since February 12th. And the amazing thing is that we've only had 3 business days since March the 4th, which was last Wednesday. And as you might be aware, today was the biggest point drop in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, over 2,000 points. The 30-year Treasury closed today at 0.99%. So the entire yield curve, taxable Treasury yield curve, was under 1% today, which is something we've never seen before. However, all of this volatility makes it very difficult for underwriters to price bonds when you're seeing these kind of daily drops. So we don't really have an updated scenario versus the one we had used last week. I think the point of this presentation is hopefully to show that there's potential for a taxable advance refunding. However, if they can go down this quick, they can go up this quick. And I think as you're probably aware, most of this is tied to the coronavirus that's enveloping the country and the world. As well as today, there was an oil price war between Russia and OPEC that's affecting U.S. oil companies substantially as well. But on this chart here, to give you an idea, once again, the 30-year at the bottom is now a 0.99. In 3 business days, we've dropped 68 basis points. The 10-year is at a 0.55, so it almost halved in 3 business days. The next chart, the issues that we had looked at as potential candidates for the refundings. The reason I've got 2 different color shades there in blue and then the one in green is because you can see in the green at the bottom, that's the IFA issue, or the Instructional Facilities Allotment issue that we did. If we were to execute refundings, we would need to have 2 separate ones because we don't want to commingle IFA issues with EDA issues, and EDA is existing debt allotment, because what happens is that the TEA has trouble tracking the IFA eligible debt service, and we end up losing IFA funding if that's the case. So we're looking at the Series 2012 refunding issue, the 2012A, the 2014, and then the Series 2016 issue as well. And as I mentioned at the bottom there, that the tax reform that went into effect in early 2018, we can only do a taxable refunding if it's more than 90 days from the call date, tax exempt if it's within 90 days. So a lot of numbers here. This would be the 2020A, and this would correspond with those issues that are in blue right there. It's a little shorter. It goes out to 2031. This was using rates as of last Thursday, plus 20 basis points. And if you go over to column 7, that would be the projected interest savings. If I can see that right, I think it's about $4.9 million, about 4.77% present value savings. And in our industry, people like to say if it's over 4% present value savings, it's worth consideration. So this is where it was as of Wednesday. It's changed a lot. Even though we've got rates as low as we do on the long end, whenever you do an advance refunding, what you do is you take the proceeds from the advance refunding bond issue and you put them into an escrow account that earns interest. Well, just like the long end of the yield curve, the short end has dropped quite a bit as well. So our escrow account won't earn as much interest as we had originally projected. So we might be pretty close to this because long-term rates have come down, which is what we're borrowing at. Short-term rates have gone down as well, though, which is what we're investing at in the escrow account. Next page, the 2016 refinancing, as you can see here in column 7, pretty substantial savings. If I read that right at the bottom, as of last Wednesday, we'd be looking at about $35 million in total savings back then. Once again, I don't want to promise that we're going to be able to achieve this. With the board considering this on Wednesday, what it would do is give us the ability to really track it and hopefully be able to jump into the market at the most advantageous time. To give you an idea in terms of as quick as we can do something and be ready to price, we would still have to get the permanent school fund guarantee. We'd still have to have rating agency calls. So even if we moved as quickly as possible, we're still probably 2 to 2.5 weeks before we're even ready. So we'll just have to see where rates are at that time and visit with Ms. Leeper and Dr. Delatorre and let them know this is what it would look like if we priced today, but there's still a lot of that pricing discovery going on right now because of just the massive movement that we've seen. And this PV savings percentage you can see there is upwards of 15, I believe it says 15% if I'm not mistaken. So this is a high level of savings. And just so you guys could see it hopefully a little better, and I can actually see it a little bit better, the combined savings we'd be looking at is about $40 million based upon, once again, last week. This would really help us in hopefully being able to issue the remaining 150 versus what we've assumed 120 up to this point. The parameter refunding bond order that Mr. Braden has prepared for your consideration on Wednesday, once again allowable under Texas Government Code. You delegate final pricing authority to the delegated pricing officers. In this case, the main parameter is that minimum savings threshold. As I like to tell all of my clients, though, it's not something where if we achieve the minimum that it just shows up on your doorstep. We're in constant communication with the district administration to get the go-ahead if we decide to move forward. And at the bottom, you can see that once again, they can only approve the issue if parameters are met, and you've used the parameter authority, for the last 15 plus years, which I believe it started to be allowed by the legislative action in 2005, I believe. The parameters that we have in the order that Mr. Braden's prepared, Dr. De La Torre or Ms. Leeper would be the pricing officers. The maximum principal amount is the same as the principal amounts that you saw on that refunding candidates page. Maximum true interest cost of 3.5%, the minimum savings threshold 4% PV. We would not extend the maturity, and the parameter authority would be good for 364 days. So hopefully over that time, if we could achieve a substantial amount of savings, this would really give us the flexibility to once again enter the market at the most advantageous times. Unfortunately, it takes a while when we when I send an email to Ms. Leeper and Ms. Haney, and I think to myself, well, we'd love to price today, but unfortunately, in our world, we typically can't do that. However, once again, if the board approves this parameter 2+ weeks out, we will be in that position to where if it looks really good, I can pick up the phone and we could probably price it the day after, once we get the okay from the administration. So with that, I know I flew through that information. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Is there a downside to any of this? It looks so good.
If the market moves the opposite way, based on those parameters, we just wouldn't do it. One of the things that Jeff mentioned, but I'd like to point out, is that if you recall, the Facility Advisory Committee recommended a program for 2019 bond of $425 million. But Mr. Robert was very clear, we don't have capacity for that much. You can only sell up to probably $393 million. So there's $40 million or so in projects out there that are not going to get done based on the capacity we have right now in our debt. So with this refunding or refinancing, we think basically we could maybe make up that difference and be able to generate enough to cover the whole 2019 program.
Gives you a lot of wiggle room. Dr. La Torre, and this is a question I have. Oftentimes the public, and again, it's just the way things are disseminated. And not that I would want the headlines, but I would like to have this type of information, if we're able to put it through the way it's been presented, be given to the taxpayer. There's still that stigma, you're just doing things for the sake of doing it. And recently, last week, I ran into a Ysleta resident. He was adamant that we're losing 10,000 children a year, and why are you building new facilities? I said, we're building facilities to better prepare children. However, the point here is the availability of funds will allow us that wiggle room to do things that currently we're not able to do. But more importantly, I think the guys that pay the bills, which is the taxpayer, needs to be at least aware through form of transparency. These are the efforts that the district does. We're not only preparing our children with a tremendous education opportunity, we're also looking at the dollars of how we're getting this thing done. And again, I'm not...
Yeah, no, in the first, the 2015 bond, if you recall, we were able to secure on 2 different occasions some pretty favorable rates that ultimately resulted in this board being able to return property tax to our homeowners, and that should have resonated well with them. In this case, it will, instead of allow us to return the tax rate or the tax dollars back, it will allow us that additional money that we need to make sure that everything gets done and that it increases our bonding capacity and our ability to do that. What we need to work on is being able to create a message that makes it understandable, user-friendly for the common homeowner, because this stuff is pretty complex and can get pretty complicated. We'll work on a way to really present that to them without giving them any kind of expectation, because sometimes it gets misinterpreted as either my tax rate's going to go down or you're going to give me some money back. That's not what's going to happen, but we're going to get greater value for our money if we're able to move forward. And I would highly recommend moving as quickly and as aggressively as we can, because as I think Jeff mentioned, things can start going up about as quickly as they go down. One vaccine here or there, and before you know it, the crisis is over and the conditions are less favorable. We will work on something like that for you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would you like a break now? Or
Yeah, let's take a break.
Go ahead and call us.
Yeah, at this time, I think we should take a health break and reconvene here in about 10 minutes. I reconvene this meeting of the Board of Trustees. We have a quorum with Mr. Charlie Bustillos, Soltero Ramirez, Richard Cuder, Mike Rosales, Connie Woodruff, Catherine Lucero, and myself. We will continue with our workshop, and we have more presentations. Dr. De La Torre?
President Ochoa, members of the board, not too long ago, Trustee Kudir expressed an interest in getting an update relative to our advanced academic programs and AVID. This evening, we have Ms. Rosemary Menchaca, our Associate Superintendent responsible for our high schools, and Christine Gleason, the Director, who'd like to review some information and be available to not just Mr. Kudur, but anyone who may have questions around this topic.
Good evening, Dr. De La Torre, members of the board and cabinet. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. What we'd like to do today is give you an overview of our high school academic program to include our AVID program as well. You should have in front of you a folder that contains some information that we are going to review with you. Presenting with me here today is Christine Gleason, who is the Director for High School Academics, and she's also the Director for AVID. She's our AVID District Director as well. So we will both be available for any questions after the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Dr. De La Torre, Board of Trustees. Before you, you will see that you have a folder that says the words high school academics on it. That I would like to express to you all is a little bit misleading because advanced academics encompasses everyone from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. So the programs that you're going to see tonight impact district-wide. So please keep that in mind as we go through the papers that you have in your folder. The first piece of paper that you have in your folder, you will notice that it says dual credit /UT on-ramps. And because the information presented in this document right here is kind of small and it's very wordy, I felt it was a better opportunity for you all to see it there in print in front of you rather than putting it up on a PowerPoint slide. So what you'll see here first is you'll see all of the district's dual credit and UT on-ramps courses offered at each individual high school. Now, this information that you have here before you was pulled from the student information system, and some of it may look a little bit weird. For example, if you look at Education 1300, which is the first course on your list, and you look across, you'll notice that it's offered at all of the high schools except for 2, and that's because Valle Verde does not offer this course on their actual campus. Rather, the kids walk across the parking lot and take it at EPCC. So some of these things may be a little bit misleading, and if you have any questions, please feel free to direct that either to Ms. Menchaca or to myself, and we're happy to explain that. Some really cool information that we have for you all is you'll notice that the on-ramps courses are pretty significant in our district. We went from 6 courses last year to 12 courses this year, and our enrollment from last year was 548, and it's grown up to 802 this year, and that's very exciting for our students. The second page that you all have here, if you turn to page 3, you'll notice that you have our advanced academics, our advanced placement information. You will see here also that we have all of the advanced placement courses that are offered across the district. And again, with these numbers too, it may be slightly misleading because you'll see, for example, if you look at AP Art 2, you'll notice that you have some very low numbers. Now, that's not to say that those classes are sitting there with one student in a class with one teacher for one period. Those classes are usually stacked. So students are getting individualized attention to prepare for that AP exam while they're sitting in a class with about 25 or 30 other students. So you can see here, it speaks for itself that all of the students have these opportunities across the district. We do have some work to do with advanced academics, or excuse me, with advanced placement. And this is especially exciting because we have opportunities to really grow our numbers with the adoption of the pre-AP curriculum that we're going to be looking at. One of the things that this will help the district do is align our courses all the way from 9th grade through 12th grade, and in some cases 8th grade through 12th grade, so that by the time students sit for an AP exam, they'll be able to score at a higher passing rate in a 3, 4, or 5 than what we're currently at. In my department right now, we are working on also aligning our AP teachers both vertically and horizontally. So our holiday exchange this summer will be focused very heavily on having teachers collaborate, work on skills, and align their syllabi so that the courses look much more similar across the district. Okay. Next, you all will see that we have on page number 5, you will see that we have our AVID information. Here, the district currently has 4 AVID schools. We have 2 national demonstration schools, those being Valle Verde Early College and Young Women's Leadership Academy. Desert View Middle School was an AVID demonstration school. However, we've applied for a waiver because, the administration changed and we've had some new AVID teachers there at the school. So we will be looking at going out for that demonstration school status again. And we have just adopted Hanks. And Hanks will be using AVID to help support their early college high school students and eventually, hopefully, go school-wide with the AVID program. The next page you all will notice is we have the Texas Success Initiative assessment, and that is the test that students take to become eligible for dual credit classes. This is also exciting because the TSI is changing. So we will have a new test for the next school year. So this will be the last year of our old one. And just very briefly, the way that the test is changing is that currently we assess the kids in 3 different areas. We assess them in reading, writing, and mathematics. The new combined assessment will combine reading and writing into one test, and then math will continue to be a standalone test. This is good news for our district because generally our students tend to perform much better in the writing area. So hopefully the combined reading and writing will help our scores improve a lot more in the reading area when they take the test together. This one, I don't know how detailed you all want me to be about the TSI, but we do have a lot of programs in place to support students when they're studying and prepping for this test. We also have a lot of teacher support when it comes to helping students prepare for this test, and I can provide you with more information about that if you would like. The next page, we have our PSAT, SAT data. You will see, not the data, it has our what we're doing in the district as far as this is concerned. You can see that at the top of the page, you've got what we offer and to whom. Our 6th grade WILA girls will start taking the test. They take the test it's called the PSAT 8-9. Then in 7th grade, we identify students to participate in the Duke Tip Scholars Program. In 8th grade, all of our students take the PSAT 8 to determine AP potential, and what this means is if they score a certain score, they're identified as having the potential to be successful in an advanced placement course, and that is used to identify students and kind of recruit them for our AP program. In 9th grade, again, the comprehensives do not test in 9th grade, but Young Women's Leadership does. In 10th grade, all of our students take the PSAT. This is the test where we determine our superintendent scholars, which is the top 5% of students who score well on this test. We bring them in, we give them some test prep sessions both at their comprehensive high school and here at central office. And those are the students who will test their 11th grade year to become hopefully national merit semifinalists or national merit finalists. Then in 11th grade, all of our students take the SAT, whereas only that identified 5% of students take the PSAT. And if you will see kind of about 3/4 of the way down the page, you will notice that we're very pleased to announce that we do have a National Merit Scholar, and we have 2 commended scholars, and both of those kids were part of the Superintendent Scholars, so it's working out. It's looking good. On your next page, you will notice that we have one more area where we're helping students become college, career, or military ready, and those are our House Bill 5 courses. They're not really called that. They're called college preparatory courses, but they came about because of House Bill 5. And those courses are a course that's designed to give the students a very intensive college prep material so that when they do actually go to college, they will be on grade level rather than in a remedial area. So that's, we identify students based on a bunch of different things, help those students prepare for college, and then by the time they get there, they're of course saving money because they won't have to, waste money taking remedial courses that don't count towards their degree. And that is advanced academics in a nutshell. Can I answer any questions?
Sir.
Thank you, Ms. Gleason, and you did good. Ms. Menchaca. On that first page, can we get this first page with the totals? I know you were trying to make it fit on that sheet, but
Absolutely.
can we get those with the totals, please?
Absolutely.
And then also too, I'd like to congratulate the district on being on top of the TSI. I know for myself, my own discipline at the college, we are not a TSI required program. However, like everybody else in the education business, we are now being graded on our completion rates and our national test rates and that sort of thing. And so we just agreed as a discipline that we're going to mandate TSI for all our high school students, which will be significant.
Yes.
It may exclude a number of students if they can't pass TSI. So I'm glad to see that YISD is getting out in front of this and doing the necessary prep so our students can be engaged in those programs and be successful. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
Any more?
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
No, I was asking any more questions.
Oh,
Right.
actually, yeah, I have a couple. On the advanced placement one, can you provide us the numbers on the success rate of the students and how many are taking the exams from last year?
Absolutely.
And also, what do we do to help our students prepare for these exams? Because they are very difficult.
Absolutely.
And we know that the district funds a lot of the testing, right? We do cover most
Yes,
of
we
the.
do.
So can you kind of walk me through what we do to help our students be successful, since we are taking a big cost in funding these exams?
Absolutely. So one of the things, it's very heavily dependent on teacher preparation within their comprehensive high schools. So one of the ways that we do handle this is we provide, campuses provide tutoring on Saturdays for students, extra test prep sessions. We do encourage campuses to offer kind of like AP exams crunch sessions during the summer so that we can offer, 2 weeks worth of really solid information for the students before they take their AP class. Moving forward, the pre-AP curriculum that's coming out that's being provided by College Board is really, in my mind, and our minds, really going to help move the needle because, as you know, students generally do not do well in this district on AP exams. And so what we're looking at is that vertical and horizontal alignment to help students become better prepared by the time they get to their junior and senior year and take those tests.
And I know the pre-AP curriculum is only going to cover so many of these tests. It's not going to cover all of them.
Right.
Is there a plan moving forward? Is it just continuing the same plan for the classes that there won't be a pre-AP framework for?
Correct, and then as soon as they start adding more, we'll do the same thing. We'll do the same rollout for those extra courses so that we can have everybody prepared and on the same page.
And then for the TSI, what is the plan as far as who gets tested, when they get tested? You said that there's a lot of things you all do in the campus to help prepare the students for it. Can you kind of walk me through that?
Sure. So all of our early college high school students who have been identified in 8th grade during their upcoming 8th grade year into 9th grade year participate in a fish camp, I guess for lack of a better word, a boot camp, plus a TSI test prep. And so those 2 weeks that they're on the campus is half a day preparing them for early college and the other half is just test prep. So by the time they finish the camp, the first thing that they do is they take the reading assessment. We have about a 50 to 60% pass rate with those particular students, which is pretty good. And then we continue to work with those students who have not passed throughout the rest of the academic year so that they test again we have a testing calendar window, and so they'll test within that window after they receive intensive remediation. For everybody else, the practice is that we do not test kids until they've completed English 2 so that they can take dual credit starting their junior year. We ask also that nobody gets tested unless they've also completed Algebra 2, because as you all know, that's pretty heavy on the TSI, and it doesn't make sense to test kids if they don't have the academic background to pass the test. During our testing windows, we have kind of a rule of thumb that if a student is pretty close to passing and they're maybe within, a couple of questions, we give them a 2-week window for remediation using different programs. We've got SHMOOP going on, we've got USA Test Prep, so they'll remediate for, during their advisory period, before and after school. Then we test them again, and we're just trying to get as many kids to pass the test as possible with that intervention in between. So that's what happens at the comprehensives.
2 more questions? if you
Yes,
don't
of
mind?
course.
Okay. PSAT, SAT one, you gave a lot of information about who gets tested for PSAT. how do we go about SAT? I know you all don't do school day SAT, but you do Saturday SAT. How do we encourage students to do it, or ACT also? I'm sure you offer both, I'm sure.
We do school day SAT. It's coming up on Wednesday, so light a candle.
Oh, you do?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, because it wasn't mentioned on here at all, so I just, so
Yes.
who gets tested, juniors?
All the juniors, yes. And
Okay.
we do an opt-out, so if a student does not wish to participate in the exam, they can go to their counselor and ask that they not, which is very rare. It doesn't happen often.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because it wasn't on there, so I thought you just did the Saturday sessions. And then last question, the college prep classes, as far as who gets into it, because looking at the percentage, that's a good amount of kids that are in those classes. Is it only seniors that haven't hit the I guess the CCMR in another way, or is it like any student, or how do you pick and choose students?
It's a
that get in?
combination of both. First, we identify all of the students who have not met CCMR measures, and we say, is this the best course for these kids? Will they really benefit from being in this class? In most cases, it's yes, because the data shows us that they're weak in certain areas that course will address. In other instances, it's by choice of the student. The student will say, you know, I really don't feel like I need to be in an English 4 class. I would rather take this class. It's going to teach me a lot more about writing, a lot more about math that will help me more when I get to college. And so in many cases, it's a student self-selecting that course.
Awesome. Thank you. And I guess if you can just get us the AP scores, and then
Yes, sir.
the PSAT average, or the SAT average would also be nice.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. Oh, question, sorry.
And it's a layman question, I'm not an educator. Could you explain just a little bit how a school gets chosen to be an AVID campus and what that actually means and looks like?
Okay, so an AVID school, AVID means Advancement Via Individual Determination. And it's a nationwide program designed to help students that generally wouldn't go to college be able to have that opportunity to learn how to study, to learn how to take notes, to learn how to do a lot of the skills that we generally don't see being taught, for example, in like explicitly. It also gives them a chance to participate in tutorials, and what that is a student will go to their AVID class 5 days a week, but 3 of those 5 days will be a tutorial in which the students bring in their own work, say for example from my Algebra 2 class, and we're doing quadratics or something along those lines. And I'm having a hard time. I just don't know what's going on. So through my tutorial group, I can say, here's the question I have, here's how I think it's solved. What do you all think? This is my problem of practice, or my question that I have. And they work through it with an AVID tutor, and the other students are able to chime in and participate. So how a school gets selected to be an AVID campus is it's all self-selection. If a school feels like that's the best fit for them, then they can go ahead and say, you know, they'll reach out to my office and say, yes, I would like to participate in AVID, or no, I don't think it's a good fit for my school this year. So it's self-selection. Some districts do mandate that it's an AVID district. Ours does not.
I guess just because the way you just explained it, it's kind of confusing to me, because if at the Young Women's Leadership Academy and at Valle Verde, those kids are already a bit more academically inclined. So I'm just a little confused.
It's more of a way to help them, because the students at Valle Verde and the students at Young Women's is very heavy on the advanced placement, and so they need that additional support to be able to work their way through the advanced placement, I guess, if you will, and just have a period where they can go and they can get, you know, help with their notes or help with the problems that they're having. Now, that's not to say that the other schools don't have heavy AP programs. It's just that YLA is especially heavy. For Valle Verde, because the students are taking classes at the actual EPCC campus, they get a little bit different of an experience than a kid who is participating in an early college per se, like Parkland, because they'll only take 1 or 2 classes at the faraway campus and the rest at their home campus. So the supports look a little bit different at those schools.
I'm sorry, that actually reminded me, because I completely forgot about, how much do we invest in AVID per school? And then is it something that we could scale it on our own as a district? Because a lot of what AVID offers is great strategies.
Right.
I have nothing against AVID, but it's expensive for the most
Correct.
part. And I was just wondering, has there ever been any thought of just scaling our own program, using their ideas mixed with other ideas, and build our own district program that can be used at all of our campuses?
Yes. you're correct, it is very expensive, and that is something that we have thought about. Mhm.
So where are we on that? If that's something that we want to do district-wide, where are we close to getting something like Avid? That you guys are coming up with, or?
We're working very closely with the campuses that have AVID, identifying the best practices that the program provides. As you know, our teachers in the classrooms also have their own best practices, and what we'd like to do is combine, bring a committee together and work with them so that they can identify best teaching practices throughout. Currently, we're looking at an AVID program as a feeder pattern in the Hanks area. We don't have any other feeder pattern identified, and it will be Hank's first year of AVID. So we're getting a lot of information from how that program runs and any recommendations that those current campuses can give us so that we can work together to come up with a plan that will support our classroom teachers with best practices. Going back
Is
to
it going to be an all or nothing at the Hanks area, at the Hanks feeder pattern?
all or nothing.
Yeah. You know, the reason I ask is that, you know, for years I was under the impression that AVID was a program to help those students who had, you know, obstacles or, you know, had challenges. And then a couple of years ago or several years ago, Mr. Basuto, and Robert's saying, why are you including my name in this? Mr. Basuto led a contingent of principals. We had Ms. Rendon, Mr. Gurani, people like that. And we visited a rural school district, and their comment was a lot of districts, a lot of schools make the mistake by only having kids who they think need AVID and not the whole school. They had elected to have their entire high school follow the AVID route. And so I was just kind of curious, how are these, I know like Young Women's, it's all or nothing. You know?
Currently, Hanks has plans to make it a school-wide AVID, and so they're starting year one. They've sent their AVID coordinator to training and several teachers to training. Year two, they sent other teachers, so eventually it becomes an AVID school-wide program. Within the next 4 years, he should have AVID all across the board.
Do we get any kind of quantitative data from them that actually proves its effectiveness? Because your one demonstration middle school is one of our struggling middle schools. And so I worry about its effectiveness, cost effectiveness, I guess, of it, because it is expensive, and it's one of our struggling middle schools. And so I've always wanted to know why AVID is revered so much when I don't see any quantitative data that shows me that it makes a great impact.
There is data out there that supports the AVID program nationwide. I think that we need to look closely gathering data that can prove to us that it is a worthwhile program based on local data. There are several high schools throughout the city that do implement AVID and do it successfully. And so we can reach out to them and see what information they have. Right now, we're a little young in our program, especially at Hanks, to have any kind of data that can allow us to make that determination.
It's kind of going along with what Mr. Cordero said. When these kids that go through the program, when they get to college, does it prevent remedial courses? And it was also how it's program measured, but more so, does it prevent them from having to take remedial courses?
The intent is to provide them a support network so that the students do gain the skills necessary to be able to take regular college courses. The majority of the students that I have worked with in a different district did go straight into community college. Some of them went to other universities. Very few of them did have to take remedial courses, but we knew that from the beginning, and so we provided them support while they were with us so that it wasn't such a shock when they got to the college level. But one of the things that I wanted to go back and address, Ms. Lucero, is that the AVID program at the early college high schools, generally, like it was mentioned, AVID is a program that addresses the lower performing student. It is a good practice to have a period during the day for our early college high school kiddos, anyone taking an advanced schedule, because it provides them the opportunity to build those strategies that they need in order to take those advanced courses. We always talk about supporting the kids at the bottom, and very few times do we really look at supporting the kids that are advanced. And so AVID is one way to do that for our early college high schools, to provide them that extra support system as they navigate through their advanced academics journey. Okay. Any other questions?
No, I don't have a question, but I do have some comments. My grandson went through AVID at Desert View. He struggled a little bit through elementary, and then he came into Desert View, and I noticed quite a change. He started to become more confident, and he started joining track and all these other clubs, and his grades started really going up. And he continued AVID in 8th grade. And I think I was skeptical about that program because it's after school. But I saw the big difference in him, that he really started to find himself and everything. He's a kind of an introvert, but I think that helped him have an outlet for his who he is. And now he's in Hanks, and he's in various track, swimming, mariachis, orchestra, and still doing well in school. So that's just my grandson from a personal experience. So as far as the data, that's all the data I have, but it's a good one. So
good, and thank you for sharing that. I do believe that AVID does do that for kids. It provides them that opportunity to build self-confidence, to be able to work with other kids, to be able to reach out to students that are outside of their own little circle. And so I have seen that, a lot of confidence. A lot of those kids end up going to universities away from the city because they have that confidence in themselves to go out there, find those applications, and just leave.
With the program idea, I just think it's important to be able to have that for, as Sotero was saying, all or nothing. And if there's something that we can implement, as Rudir was saying, that we can model and have that something that is district-wide, I think that would benefit our overall goals, even with HB.
Right.
HB
Okay. Thank you.
I'm the wrong guy to ask. I'm not an AVID fan. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should clarify that. I shouldn't just leave it at that. I think AVID has some great elements. I don't believe that they're unique to AVID. I think they're fundamental. I think it would not be difficult for the district to create something like that. But the thing with programs like AVID is oftentimes it's about the leadership and the implementation and who's driving the locomotive. And when there's change, then there's inconsistency relative to the benefits that AVID provides students. I actually see more benefit in Young Women's Leadership Academy, Valle Verde Early College High School environment than I do in your traditional comprehensive high school or middle school. The question I would ask is, if those elements are so important, time management, goal setting, Cornell note-taking, wouldn't it benefit all students? Why doesn't it become part of our tapestry, the fabric of what we look like in schools? I don't think, if it were up to me, that's not where I would invest money to go district-wide AVID. But what you do run up against is, this district has for a long time, up until recently, really had sort of a site-based decision-making culture where principals, and rightly so, are given the latitude to make decisions about their campus outside of what we believe are non-negotiables. And I think we've made progress since we arrived in 2014 relative to there are some things that have to absolutely be uniform across the district. Expectations, standards, curriculum, technology. So there are any number of things, services, programs, products that we believe have to be district-wide because we want to promote equity. And when you start making excuses for why one learning community does something but another learning community doesn't, you can inadvertently create a double standard where it can be interpreted as those expectations are too high for this area, but they fit nicely in this area. And what we'd like to promote is the idea that it's high expectations across the district. I'm with Sotero and Richard. I don't have anything against AVID. I don't think it's the magic bullet. Is it harmful? Absolutely not. Is the return on investment there, which is I think what you all are indirectly asking. I can tell you that Desert View is a model school, I believe they referred to it. A demonstration school, and I can tell you that Desert View has some work to do when it comes to performance academically. They've been getting better, but that would not be where I would place my priorities relative to making the investment.
Dr. De La Torre, just to, because I was actually just talking to Dr. Kenny, because obviously I'm somewhat familiar with that school also. It's only 100 kids that are in there in Desert View, so imagine if the impact of it would be something we create where we could allow it to all students. I think maybe a great, but that's the problem that I've always had with AVID is that it's not every kid, as Sotero and Catherine said, actually get the benefit of it. It's only a select group that have that class
And,
that
normally,
truly benefit from it.
excuse me, I'm sorry. And then normally you would think that having 100 kids would be beneficial because you know all the students, you know their name, you know everything about them, you can tailor the instruction. In this case, it can be a detriment because all seventh graders have one math teacher. That's all they need. So depending on the effectiveness of that math experience, it doesn't just touch one group of students, it touches the entire seventh grade. So teaching is critical at small schools like Desert View because there's no, hey, I'm not really understanding Mr. Bustillos. He has a unique pedagogy or style of teaching. Can I transfer into Sotero's? There is no Sotero. You are the seventh grade math teacher, and that's a huge burden on the math teacher to be responsible for the entire seventh grade group of students relative to their effectiveness. And that's just not math. That happens in English and social studies and science, and it happens in both the seventh grade and the eighth grade. One little hiccup and it reflects poorly and sometimes unfairly on the entire school.
I also like the idea of, the principals being in charge of their own destinies because we hold them accountable. And, one of the schools close to my heart, they had AVID. They elected not to go that direction because of the cost. And the monies that they invested on other initiatives, other programs, has paid off, significantly. And so, that particular school would benefit from an AVID type program. But the reality is that this school has shown huge gains with their other investments. And so I think that needs to continue.
And I'm not even sure, when we pay for AVID, does it come out of the school's budget or out of the district budget?
Sorry.
That's
It comes out of the campus budget, and high school academics supports it as well.
So I think it's a topic worth pursuing and talking about and seeing. But I don't want to pull it from any school or principal that really believes in it. I just haven't, as you know, actively or aggressively promoted it anywhere else. I've left that up to the principals.
Okay, we're done on that. All right, let's move on.
I see Champagne standing in the corner with bated breath, waiting to enlighten us.
Good evening, President Ochoa, Dr. Theater, and all the cabinet members and all board members. This is Champagne. Do you have any questions?
Champagne, what happened to our color coding? We don't have red, yellow, and
We do?
we do, but none of them are red, yellow.
Huh? We do? Red is only when they didn't address it. If they address it, it's partially.
Yeah, but we
Oh,
also.
you know what? At some point, my printer was bad, and we only had one printer.
Yeah, but this is not your printer. This is computer.
Which one? Which one?
Well, none of them. Only blue. Only shows blue.
Audit monthly summary report.
We lost that somewhere down the line. Yeah.
I think you're looking for the cover page, the
Huh?
abbreviation page.
No, you were gonna color code all the, according to their, how they were ranked as being critical. Yellow was being somewhat to look at.
Or the
Green,
red, green, and the
yes, and yellow.
no
Or
yellow.
orange, whatever you chose. Anyway, it has no colors,
Blue. Okay, I will.
except blue,
I will look at it again this week.
because it makes it easier to read, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
One of the questions I had was on Project 41.
Project what?
41.
41?
Mm-hmm.
Project 41?
It's on page 3.
Okay.
You there?
Yes.
Okay, it says division name high school, department name high school, and your major observation was, one was credit redemption. You'd have small letter B, 240 exceptions of missing and incomplete records.
Yes, sir. This one, we had issued the audit report in September 2018, and we issued a CAP report on November 2018. We're supposed to do follow-up audit, but I don't have the manpower to do it yet.
I think this one's critical, especially with all those exceptions of missing. And then credit recovery, that's letter B1,
Yes.
136 exceptions, incorrect grades and missing or incomplete records.
Yes.
We never gone back to look at that?
I'm working with Fernie to get the records this week.
What?
I'm working on this audit now.
Yeah, but those are something that you should jump on right now, not, especially when those came out. And then there's small letter B under that. It's inconsistencies in the credit recovery document and grade rounding process among high schools. What does that mean?
Back then, the credit recovery, we did not have the application we have now. So it was all paper. Every high school get to do their processes. For now, there is an app on our website. The schools use this app to monitor loss of credit due to absences, to monitor credit recovery due to absences. So now it's more consistent. And we have, even though I didn't have time to do this SPABA follow-up audit, but in every school's audit, we do check on loss of credit. For example, the Riverside Middle School's exit audit we did in June, that we do follow up on how they handle credit recovery and credit redemptions. So this part is taken care of by the school's audits. Many of those things we found out in that audit, like the documentation was not consistent or incomplete. Then when we do the schools audit, we also check that too. So the loss of credit, it has improved already.
Yeah, because these reports were back in 2018.
Yes, sir.
What happened in 2019? Did you?
I lost control.
Well, we need to go back.
Yes, Bob
We
is
need to
helping me now.
verify. We need to verify, because this, I think, is critical.
Yes.
And we also had rankings for all these things. What happened to our rankings?
Say that again?
Didn't we have rankings for some of this findings?
What do you mean by ranking?
Ranking, like I said, was it critical? Is it something, you had some,
Yes, we had it. If it's not addressed, we put it in red.
I know we talked about that for monies.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
For
The
money-
impact on the
for
dollar amount
monies.
impact, yes.
Yeah, but this is also academic, and we need to address this in the same way.
What we do is when we started to add more of the funding impact. For example, when we give the schools audits, we do.
Yeah, I understand that, but we need that on this kind of documents,
Okay.
audits, I should say.
Okay.
We need to have some kind of way to measure, especially that one. Even though it was in 2018, I'm sure it's been taken care of, but we need to be reassured that this is not an ongoing, continuing process. That those exemptions have been taken care of, that we have minimal now, especially when it comes to grades and inconsistencies with credit recovery.
Yes, I'm getting on this project now. So not just this one, we also are starting to prepare to do the AD and PIMS overall audit for high schools and middle schools. I'm wrapping up the cash audit on the middle schools, so this project should come up soon.
There's another one here. The card? What card? No, it has to do, okay. And this is one that we saw recently. Actually, Mr. Soltero was the one that noticed it, and it's on Project 11 on page 6. And this is about timely taking of attendance analysis. And this report was created in 8/6/2019. And it's also the potential to refund money to TEA.
Yes, sir. For this project, what we did was we worked with all the associates and all the principals in the beginning of the school year to remind everyone how important taking attendance within a snapshot window. We already narrowed down the snapshot window from plus minus 15 minutes into plus 15 minutes, which is a huge adjustment for teachers. And it is a big improvement on our being in compliance. I could not get a firm confirmation from TEA auditors to see what is a reasonable window, because the TEA guideline is we district has to set a snapshot time to take attendance. If we say we're going to take at 9:30, by law it's 9:30. Every teacher needs to log in how many students are present, how many students are absent at 9:30. But reality, we all know, it's almost impossible to have every teacher to do so. So I have been in contact with TEA, and we try to say, what is a reasonable time? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, And no one would give us a firm comment. They just say, well, you have to do as much as reasonable. So I think I work with all the associates, and the decision was made is 15 minutes. It's acceptable risk that we, if someday the TA auditor comes in and audit us and to say, well, for this particular auditor, 5 minutes is reasonable, then those attendance we take between 5 minutes to 15 minutes, it's potentially we need to return the funding. But our problem, I don't think it's in that snapshot and 15 minutes. Our problem is with this 15 minutes, our attendance taking rate is not high enough. Does it make sense to you all? Like we have many teachers who would say that now the new decision we make is second period. Teacher would take in second period, right? So if high school second period start at 9:30, so for this school, 9:30 to 9:45 will be the window for all the teachers to take attendance. We call this within snapshot window. But this rate, it's not high enough among the analysis I provide. And then every schools we do after August of 2019, every school we audit, we provide follow-up analysis to show to principal what had been since that analysis. For now, this semester, all the audit we issue, we give analysis of the grade marking period 1, grade marking period 2, and then partially grade marking period 3 for the principal to see what their percentage of teachers taking attendance within the 15 minutes window, how they are doing, and then I give them money, potentially at risk money.
And that's more of our concern is the money that you're talking about being refunded to TEA. And we're talking about thousands of dollars.
Yes.
And I'm sure that you have brought it up, like you say, to the principals, but what has happened district-wise? Have we, I'm sure you've addressed this issue.
Also, President Ochoa, I guess it's for Dr. La Torre. I mean, if the district has a policy, we've already communicated that policy to the principals and to the school and to the teachers, then if we've done that clearly, and I'm assuming we have, then why are we spending time trying to get TEA's opinion on something? We have a policy, we follow our own policy, and that's the end of the story. We shouldn't have to worry about the fact that there's a 5, 10, or 15, whatever window that's available. I mean, we have a policy.
My explanation to you all was that the analysis I gave everybody is the the 9:30, say our accounting period is 9:30 plus 15 minutes. What I mean is this 15 minutes, I don't have the authority or the confidence to say that this is reasonable to TEA's, one of the auditors. Because other districts, some districts select up to, say, accounting period plus 5 minutes. Some school districts say accounting period plus 10 minutes. We choose 15 minutes. My point to you all is this is everybody's management's decision, and this is a risk we take. Yes.
Just to understand a little bit, have we lost funds? Like, let's say, for example, in the past year, did we lose funds last year?
Not yet.
Okay, so you were issuing like a warning. That's
why, yes. I'm saying potentially. That's why in the audit report I said potentially. If we get audited, if the auditor from TEA say, no, this 50 minutes is not acceptable, he only accepts 5 minutes or he only accepts 10 minutes. But my point to you all is the way I look at our district, it's not a 15 minutes issue. It's those teachers who don't even take attendance within this 15 minutes. That's what I am bringing up to all the principals' attention and associate attention, say that your percentage of teachers taking attendance within accounting period plus 15 minutes is not high enough overall.
May I add something very quickly? Just to ease all of your minds, we have met with every principal. We have taken note of it. The policy has been rolled out an additional time. We are documenting teachers as necessary, and that comes to me on a regular basis, and I can assure you that I could count on one hand how many teachers are not taking attendance at this point. And I think Ms. Sleeper can confirm we haven't lost any money, nor has TEA put us on notice at this point that we have the potential of losing money. I think Champaign is talking out of an abundance of caution, but I just want to caution you, don't get hypervigilant. There has been nothing that has come to the district at this point that has delineated that we're going to lose any funding at all.
I don't think I was, this is potential. And I read that in there, but under her CAP, corrective action plan, what you just said wasn't there in here. And that is one of the things that you should include in that. When you put something like this on the right side, it should be in red, actually. Okay, this part should have been red. It's critical to the whole district, but you should have also included what has been done to correct that. And I think that would have lessened all our anxiety and would have answered a lot of our questions instead of just putting out hey, this is a warning, but it's really something that has already been taken care of, especially when, like on the previous one, when the last report was issued in 2018. So you need to prioritize, especially when you write something like this, you need to prioritize and take care of it right away, because if not, it's going to create a lot of anxiety and questions here on the board.
Okay, I'll work on it.
No, do it.
Yes, sir.
Please.
That's what I mean. Yes, I will do it.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. Anybody else?
I just want to make a recommendation. I think because I know there's some autonomy because you are the internal auditor, but I think it would be a decent idea to just for checks and balances to ensure, or to at least have our CFO be able to look at, especially the things that concern financials and loss of credit and things like that. Like to have this report, the monthly summary, I think it'd be important to have this department be able to look at those documents if possible.
You mean the audit report?
So I think, Champagne, what she's saying is that I don't see this report, nor do the associates. And so it would be helpful for the associates, I think, not just me, to see this monthly summary so that we can help address the questions the board may have.
And address any issues.
And make sure issues are addressed. Yes, we see individual audit reports, but we don't see the summary.
Can we do that?
Yes, sir.
One question, in reference to your comment, Bobby, isn't there a process already? You said that you could identify 6 people or whatever.
Yeah, what happens is the initial process is that we, of course, if there's a repeat offender, then we would warn them. And if the behavior continued, then we would formally document them with a reprimand.
Well, and going back to your question.
So yeah, there is a process in place.
Share your information with Lindley, Ms. Leeper.
That's only if I'm notified of it by the campus principal. I don't see the report that Xinping does, but I do communicate regularly with our principals, and they do bring it to our attention, given that all of the associates have rolled out the requirements to all of our principals and assistants.
Well, I think because we've made attendance, both student attendance as well as employee attendance, such a priority in this school district, I think all our principals understand that it does no good to generate this high ADA if we're going to give it back because we simply can't report those same students who are attending school. So there are 2 pieces. One is the campaign to get the kids and the employees to come to school every day, but you shoot yourself in the foot if they come to school every day and you don't submit their attendance during that 15-minute window. So I can't believe that there would be a principal out there who, if brought to their attention, wouldn't want to address this immediately if they had a teacher who wasn't submitting the attendance during that attendance window. I assume that there may be problems sometimes with a substitute who may have been told or who may have read the information, but because they're a substitute, they're not as aware of how important it is or as vigilant. And you know how it is sometimes when you're a substitute, it takes a while to get control of the classroom and get kids to sit down. I could see that maybe surfacing, more frequently than our teachers of record. I think our teachers of record know that second period, first 15 minutes, take attendance, submit the information, PEAMS collects it, and they have to know that we can find out how every individual teacher has done relative to their reporting by simply asking for the report. So it's not anything that they can do and not be held accountable for if they habitually fail to submit their attendance on a regular basis. And looking at some of the schools, you're talking about Cesar Chavez, a little more fluid out there, Tejas, some of the special programs. It may just not have fit nicely with their schedule because they have flexible schedules that may not lend themselves to this level of rigor. But I think we've addressed it. I think everybody's aware of it. I think you should see a significant improvement in it. And even when you go back to the 2018 record, keep in mind if there's 196 irregularities, if you have 10 high schools, you're talking about 8, 9, 10 kids per high school. So we can address it quickly when we see it. I don't mean to sound like anybody who's trying to reduce the problem, but it's just 11 kids per high school.
But is that okay, though? Is it okay to share the summary, or is that not something we are able to?
No, we can request it. We've respected the relationship between the auditor and the board, but if the board doesn't have a problem with it, Champaign doesn't have a problem with making additional copies and disseminating it.
Can I explain to you my logic? When I issue audit report, I send to both trustees, Dr. De La Torre at the same time, and I CC the relevant associates. My logic is everybody has a different leadership style. I don't want to overburden them with the information they may or may not need it. And this report really, it's a summary, it's a tracking. Tracking is a convenient way for the board to know what I'm doing. And so if Dr. De La Torre wants to share with all the associates, he has the call to do so. That's my logic. He's the boss. He said, I'm going to give it to every principal. He has my report. He can do so. And he has the right to do so. No, I'm just saying, just example, yes.
And Ms. Lindley, because we could avoid, it could assist to mitigate issues that might come up at a shorter time, and maybe even help when you do the follow-up, things are taken care of.
Sure, I can work with Dr. De La Torre to see how wanted to distribute. I don't have a problem with that. And if all the board feels is okay, then you're the boss.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Champagne.
Okay.
All right. Now, we'll discuss the agenda items as listed in the posted notice of regular meeting of Ysleta ISD Board of Trustees for March 11, 2020, and related recommended motions with the superintendent and executive cabinet, and receive responses to questions and or requests for additional information through the superintendent in preparation for deliberation and action at the March 11, 2020 regular Board of Trustee meetings. Okay, consent items. Number 1, Board of Trustees special meeting superintendent evaluation, January 30, 2020, 6 p.m. If you have any questions or anything, please stop me. Board of Trustees workshop, February 10th, 2020, 6 p.m. Number 3, Board of Trustees regular meeting, February 12th, 2020, 6 p.m. Board of Trustees board retreat on February 27th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Number 5, monthly financial update for the month of January 2020. Number 6, E-rate 2020 10 gigabyte Ethernet connection to the internet point of presence. Let's see. Number 7, solicitation number 220014 RFP E-rate 2020 Category 2 Network Equipment Refresh and Upgrade and Category 1 Network Equipment to light dark fiber. Number 8, solicitation for 220002 RFP E-rate 2020 district-wide area network. This is, can I ask somebody to explain this one a little bit, please?
Mr. Chamley's coming forward to do that for you.
Okay, thank you. Because this is $1 million from district funds.
This project is a E-rate project for a redesign of our wide area network that connects all of the campuses back to central office. It would change from a lease-lit type of network where we lease the fiber, we don't own it, to a situation where we own it. It would move us from, typically we renew the lease-lit type of arrangement we have right now every 5 years. This will move it to an owned fiber network by us for a term of 15 years.
How much?
15 years.
15 years? So we don't have to put in any fiber ourselves?
Right, no, it's contracted
It's the same
out
situation
and-
right now, except
Right, it's managed by another company, by a third party.
for 15 years, and
Yes.
this is the cost. Any rate will pay it 90%?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that this is just something that we're not going to put in fiber.
No,
fiber
not ourselves,
optics.
no.
Okay, because that is costly.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was it. Anybody have questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Number 9, approval of instructional materials for English language, arts, and reading.
Cruz,
Yes.
I got a couple questions. I
Oh,
know
I'm sorry. Who do you have questions
for
for?
number 9.
Oh, okay, she's coming up.
I know that we did everything by the book. We had the super duper district level instructional materials committee go through their stuff.
Yes,
And
sir.
that purchasing did all their cool stuff. And I know everything is on the up and up. But I'm kind of curious, and that's, I guess, what I'm trying to understand here, is that the commission-approved list, a foundation curriculum from a commissioner-approved list, how many vendors were on that commissioner-approved list?
There was about 12 vendors that had been vetted through TEA for the Proclamation 2020.
Okay, so there were about 12 vendors.
Yes,
And we
sir.
looked at all 12 vendors?
Yes, sir. All vendors had the opportunity to send us their published materials. Most of them were digital. There were a high percentage of them being digital only. So they sent us access codes for teachers to go ahead and log in and have access to their materials, digital materials. So all of those that had hard copies did send them to the campuses and to the district level high school academics department.
Okay, so it was more than just the committee itself that made the recommendation. Other folks had a chance to weigh in on the materials?
Yes, sir. The way the process works, we have a timeline. So we start off in early September and we'll identify our high school academics department specialists. And we had 2 working with our ELAR teams. Then we also invited our academic language programs specialists for our ESL population. We invited our special education staff, district-wide staff, and also our instructional technology staff. So that way we could look at a whole program. Once we came together, then they identified campus representatives. So at the campus level, we had 1 representative for each of our high schools. So it was one of our ELAR teachers. Those ELAR teachers were our go-between, our liaisons between the district staff, our publishers, and then their colleagues, their teachers. So once we had the committee together, we went over as far as policies, our EFA, our regulation EFFAA, and then we also went over as far as roles and responsibilities for them, because we called them the CARs, the Campus Adoption Representatives. So we went over their roles and responsibilities, and then they signed an oath on our first meeting as far as they would honor the process that we were going to follow district-wide. So once we identified those, that we went through a rubric as well. At a district level, we established a rubric where each teacher would have the option to look at the materials and rate them based on the rubric. So each campus had those copies. So once we did that, then we invited publishers for showcases and so forth. So all the representatives were asked to bring their colleagues to the showcases. They also were invited to off-site presentations, to the Region 19 presentations and so forth. So campuses had the multiple opportunities to go to look at the individual as far as vendor equipment, materials that were up for adoption.
What are Region 19 presentations?
Region 19 was a full day presentation where they had all of the publishers there for an entire day, and it was a school day. So several of our campuses and our cars went, so they would go and listen to about 20-minute presentations by publishers. So they had them scheduled like in intervals. As for every 20 minutes, you know, publisher number 1 was from 8 to 8:20, publisher number 2 could have been from 8:25 to so forth. So it was an all-day, an 8 to 4 presentation.
There were other districts there besides ours?
Yes, sir, but we had the highest showing. As far as Ysleta had the highest showing.
Okay, and we selected Pearson Education.
Yes, sir. The teachers selected Pearson Education because the way the process works is only teachers, the professional staff, and teachers of record are eligible to vote, to voice their selection. So what the CARs had to do, they identified each 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade teacher. If they taught multiple grade levels, then they had two voices as far as the individual teacher. So if I'm a 9th grade teacher and I'm a 10th grade teacher, then I'm using 2 different textbooks, or could be, you know, regular English or AP. So I'm using 2 different materials. So I voice my selection twice. So 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, each of those teachers had a written ballot that they signed. They voted, they made their top 3 selections, they voted, they signed the ballot. Then the campus rep took them all in. So 9th grade selected 1, 2, 3, sophomore selected 1, 2, 3, junior selected 1, 2, 3, senior teacher selected 1, 2, 3. So then we brought them all together and then we tallied those votes. So it was by individual teacher, then by grade level, and then that's where we came to the campus selection.
Okay, it may have been in the packet, but there's no dollar amount on here.
No, sir, we don't have any dollar amounts because once the board approves the selection, then we bring in the publishers, we bring back in the teachers and the district level representatives, and then we start looking at packages as far as what do the teachers need out in the classroom, so that way they can make their selection. So they can customize what the teachers are requesting to what Ysleta needs.
Okay, is there a maximum dollar amount on this?
We usually, we try and cap it at about $3 million per proclamation. So and we've got plenty of funds to support that. So depending on digital, as far as are we looking at 1-to-1, are we looking at classroom sets? And at the high school level, secondary, we usually go with classroom sets and then 1-to-1. That's what we did also for our elementary and middle schools.
And then on the state testing, Pearson is one of the big writers of exams for the state, are they not?
Yes, sir. And we also have new TEKS coming up. So what we're looking at is working collaboratively with our high school department. Whoever was the choice, we told them we're going to have to do a lot of summer HE as far as professional development with the new TEKS and the new adoption. So that way they can go ahead and align it to the TEKS resource system as far as what they're using for their, you know, as far as the YAG and the scope and sequence and so forth. So every teacher had a voice, and every teacher submitted their selection. So that way they take ownership and they say, was it a consensus? No, but the majority was the one that was number 1.
Okay, so that means 51% said, yes, we should do this? Is that what you're telling me?
We have the tallies. I have the tallies, so I can share the tally sheets with you. But it was more than, yes. It was a clear cut with number 1.
Thank you. President Ochoa, can we move number 9 to the action items, please?
Okay. We'll move it to action items. Okay. I do have a question. Now, this book is not the sole book that's going to be used for these classes. It's not the only resource that's going to be used in these classes, is it?
No, sir. And on the premise and the onset of the actual adoption, we remind teachers that this is a resource that they have available to them, along with other resources that they have in their classroom and readily available for their use. So this is only a resource that they have.
So they still can create their lesson plans, and
Yes, sir.
they can only not follow this book page
Yes,
by
sir.
page, but it's
and-
more of a resource which will be, I think, more useful because you have
Yes.
a variety of resources that you can use to bring in your lesson for that day, whatever the teacher decides is needed.
Yes, sir. And what we try to do is encourage the teachers to build their toolbox per se, and then that way they have a variety of resources, because there is no one magic bullet as far as curriculum or material out there that will, meet all the TEKS requirements to the rigor that is required for all the students. So what our high schools department will look at is the new TEKS, and then where does it fit, and then how can we fill in gaps with other materials and supplemental resources.
Yeah, when I saw this, that was my concern too, and the selection of how you went about, because you can't read that into this a few paragraphs, but I think that your explanation and the committee, I'm
Yes, sir.
reassured that it was made up of teachers.
Yes, sir.
Teachers
Yes, sir.
that actually are in the classroom using these textbooks, so they made the selection for
Yes, sir.
their resources.
Teachers were the only ones that were allowed, teachers of record were the only ones that were allowed to submit their vote.
Okay, so we'll be moving this to an action item.
And just very briefly, we really encourage teachers to adhere to the TRS system so that they're addressing all of the standards. And what we're providing are supplemental tools, including textbooks and workbooks and other materials. And even encouraging the use of, open source materials that are available to teachers. And the reason I think it's important is when I was in California in 2008 and the economy went south, the first thing the state did was cut funding for instructional materials and textbooks, right? And I believe that that's likely what any state would do if they go through some kind of an economic recession. So relying on textbooks to drive your instruction and create your lesson plan is never a good idea. The standards and the substandards or power standards should drive your lesson plan, and the textbook should be one of many resources, since we promote tailoring and personalizing instruction for every student based on what they need. The textbook is sort of the 1970s, 80s mindset when our teachers would simply pass out 32 of these and they'd start on page 1, and you start moving through the textbook with chapter questions and then unit exam. Today, that doesn't work in preparing our students for the kind of experience they're going to have as adults. So we need to be more fluid, and I think our teachers expect to have greater academic independence and greater academic latitude, which we're okay with as long as it addresses those standards that will ultimately appear on the STAR or EOC or an SAT or a PSAT or whatever it is that we're trying to promote. So as far as processes go, I think it was comprehensive, it's somewhat extensive, it's very inclusive. Unlikely we'll ever get a unanimous thumbs up because teachers were exposed to other options and they may have liked other options. But please consider that when deciding whether we move forward or whether we go back and look for another resource.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, moving on to number 10, approval of award of YISD contract number 202000088, interlock agreement with Socorro Independent School District. Number 11, approval of award YISD contract number 202000133, interlock agreement with Region 6 Education Service Center. Okay, action items. Issuance of unlimited tax refunding bonds. Number 2, budget amendment requiring board approval. Number 3, Oh, yes, sir.
President Ochoa, just wanted to make a comment. We are doing this, we, the district, are doing this well. It's this consolidation and this movement and everything. You know, I know I heard discussion somewhere a million years ago and 1,000 miles away type thing, but, you know, when I saw the furniture on the agenda, I was extremely pleased. And so I hope that this, I'm just pleased, and I just want to say thank you to the district for getting this done.
Thank you, Mr. Sotero. Number 3, award of YISD solicitation number 220001, RFP, employee health benefits for medical benefits and third-party administration and related components. Number 4, award of YISD solicitation number 220001, RFP, employee health benefits for pharmacy benefit management. Number 5, award of YISD solicitation number 220001, RFP, employee health benefits for various ancillary benefits. And item number 9, is there any motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn.